West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël.
Can't explain why you chose this fight. Things were going pretty well. We were voting on judges. None of us would have picked. I voted for most of them. Some people over here voted for others. Sort of the way it works. And now we're in a ditch. I mean, it's going to be a long day. We're going to get zero done. You're going to have a complete show. But if that's what you want, that's what you're going to get.
The headline for me is that Lindsey Graham thinks that's the ditch. Hi again, everybody. It's 5 o'clock in New York. That is how Republicans responded today to an effort to hold one of the three branches of the United States government to the same kind of ethics accountability as all the others. With that, an obstruction. Democrats on the Senate Judiciary Committee have been pushing for an ethics code for the Supreme Court, an effort they have strengthened and accelerated in recent months in response to and in light of reporting about conservative justices accepting free hospitality and travel without disclosing it properly. Originally, the committee was scheduled today to vote on subpoenas for billionaire Republican donor Harlan Crow and conservative legal activist Leonard Leo. But overnight, Republicans filed 88 amendments in an attempt to impede those votes. They got what they wanted, at least temporarily. The votes were delayed due to the barrage of amendments from Republicans. But Judiciary Chair Senator Dick Durbin vowed that the votes will still take place, saying this, quote, "The highest court in the land cannot have the lowest ethical standards." And he called out his Republican colleagues for grandstanding. Over the past few months, we have learned a whole lot about the lavish gifts bestowed upon Supreme Court justices, people like Clarence Thomas and his expensive vacations gifted from Crow, or a 2008 fishing trip to Alaska for Justice Samuel Alito, coordinated by Leo. It's a remarkable moment in our politics right now, where Republicans are trying to stop Democrats from uncovering the truth about an institution with a record low approval rating from all Americans. Confidence in the highest court in the land currently stands at just 27%, according to the latest Gallup polling. In addition to the lavish gifts, it was the Supreme Court that voted to overturn Roe versus Wade. It's a ruling which has cost Republicans huge in every single election since the decision, including on Tuesday, when the reddish state of Ohio voted to enshrine abortion rights into their state constitution. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee who has been a longtime advocate for more transparency and higher ethics when it comes to the court, issued a statement on the subpoenas being held up today, saying this, quote, "In an ordinary time and with an ordinary Supreme Court, this would have been an uneventful day. Billionaires with demonstrated interest in influencing the court, making enormous secret gifts to justices, obviously merits investigation. By putting up 90 amendments, Republicans jammed the gears of the committee. we will still go forward now that we have seen this strategy with united support on the Democratic side for getting to the bottom of what is going on with this pattern of secret billionaire gifts to justices. That is where we start the hour with some of our favorite experts and friends. The aforementioned Senator Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island is here. Also joining us, Executive Director for Fix the Court, Gabe Roth is back. With me at the table, State Attorney for Palm Beach County, Florida, Dave Ehrenberg is back. Senator, I start with you. I want to start with Tuesday night. I worked in politics, and when I worked in politics, I was always pretty skeptical of the polls, sometimes to the pollsters' chagrin. But I feel like this issue of reproductive health care is about reproductive health care. It is also about the court. And I wonder how you saw Tuesday night's results.
Well, first of all, I think Tuesday night's results were an incredibly powerful public statement by the American people across the country in multiple elections that, thanks, we do not appreciate having rights that we've enjoyed for a generation taken away from us. So that's the baseline. Then you throw in the court that did it, and it begins to smell a little rotten because of all of the machinations around the court of the far right-wing billionaires and how that decision, among many others, looks a lot like it has been delivered by the court for big donors who helped put the justices who delivered it on the court.
You know, I also, again, I've drawn more on my past experience as a Republican today than perhaps any point in 8 years. I'm not sure why, but Republicans have relied on two things to drive their base. And it may all be replaced by frothy frenzy for Donald Trump. I don't know anymore. But they relied on shaping the court and overturning Roe. Those things are both gone. And I wonder what opportunities you've been talking about these issues. I mean, the idea that Republicans are going to further weaken this thing that's a political ball and chain for them is almost laughable. Part of me watched what they did today and said, knock yourself out. But I know you care about the court and the institution, so I wonder how you saw their antics today.
Yeah, I think politically, every time they draw attention to their efforts to defend the court from the most basic oversight to which every other federal judge is subject, they don't have a very good story to tell about it. And the degree of agitation about it on their part is really unjustified by any normal, ordinary, sensible, rational measure. What it, I think, has to go back to is the fact that they've got some very big billionaires who not only spent a lot of money to acquire this court, but spent a lot of money to acquire the Republican Party. If you look behind the big Republican super PACs, I'm pretty sure you'll find the same billionaires that you'll find behind the court capture operation. So they're in a state of real alarm that if they let down their big billionaires and let down the court that is delivering all these goodies for them, they're going to be in political harm's way. But the public has a completely different view of this, and it just shows how responsive Republicans have become to a right-wing billionaire elite rather than to the regular, normal voters.
So tell us what happens next.
So now that we've seen that what they're going to try to do is flood the committee with last-minute amendments so that in one night you've got to try to get the entire Democratic side aligned on 90 different votes. That's not going to happen. But now that we know that that's their strategy, we can plan for it. And Chairman Durbin is going to call this back up at a time that he will decide on. And then we'll go through whatever their amendments are, but we'll be ready and we'll get these subpoenas for Harlan Crow and for his corporations and for Leonard Leo, and then we'll move forward. Interestingly, two of the other billionaires have already started to cooperate with us. So we're beginning to make progress even before the subpoena vote.
What do you want to ask Crow personally?
I want to know how many gifts there were, just for starters. We don't know what the full array is of generosity that was given to Clarence Thomas or to his wife. We know that there's a lot, but figuring out what it all was is kind of the baseline. And then you want to look at how interconnected it was. When you see that Crow gave $500,000 to Justice Thomas's wife's new entity that she set up, and then Leonard Leo, who was in the painting with, Clarence Thomas, also directed $25,000 to Mrs. Thomas. You want to know what's the rationale behind all that? Who's pulling what strings? How do these things actually connect? What's the plot line that connects all of these different episodes of, let's just call it generosity for now?
It's very generous. And then let me just ask the same question of Leo, who has, in some ways, a more intricate, he has his fingers in every aspect of this, on the political side and the judicial side.
Yeah, he has his fingers in all of this. One of the letters that we got back from one of the billionaires talking about a free trip that he gave to Justice Alito announced that he had given the free trip to Alito after a conversation with Leonard Leo. And Leonard Leo was in the Harlan Crow painting. And Leonard Leo sent the money to Ginny Thomas. And Leonard Leo went on a fishing trip separately with Alito, and on and on and on. Almost wherever you touch this network of right-wing billionaires and the justices they put on the court, you see their intermediary, their little functionary, Leonard Leo. So he's a very, very important center of this little web of scheming.
Is your theory of the case that there's going to be, because the subpoenas will go forward, you will hopefully have a chance to ask these questions of these gentlemen, that there's some smoking gun, or is it to reveal for the American people who are paying very close attention now to the Supreme Court? Just ask Sam Alito, who's super cranky about it every time the Wall Street Journal dials his home phone. Is it just to reveal to the American people how netted up and how corrupt it is?
I think probably more the latter. I mean, we may turn up instances of law breaking, particularly around tax filings or potential false statements that were made. But I think the bottom line here is that we simply cannot have a United States Supreme Court that is captured like a 19th century railroad commission and is doing what the railroad barons tell it. You just can't live in a democracy with a court that runs that way. And to fix that, the first thing you need to do is show to the American people the full depth of the problem so that we can all agree on the appropriate solution.
Do you think there's a tipping point for the court where they're at 27%? They have fallen the farthest, the fastest in terms of any institution in American public or civic life. Do you think there's a point where they come and play and say, Uncle, we need ethics, help us? Or do you think they're just too cocooned and bunkered to do that?
No, I think there are two tipping points. One is the tipping point where the Chief Justice says, I'm not going to wait for unanimity. If we have to vote through a proper ethics code 7-2, that's what we'll do. We took away women's rights 5-4. We can damn well vote for an ethics code 7-2. And that, I think, breaks the ice at the court. The second tipping point is when the judges on the judicial conference, the body that runs the judicial branch, get so fed up that they tell the Chief Justice, look, this just doesn't stand any longer. We run our disciplinary procedures. We know what the rules are. We know what you've done is wrong. We know what they're saying is nonsense. This has to stop. And I think we're close to both of those tipping points.
It is Friday, the 10th of November of 2023. And you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef, Precious the little Yorkie. She is our door girl, and she will be seating you directly for our especially special daily special, Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. Oh my. Well, the French 77s have been virtually mixed and poured for your virtual imbibing pleasure, so please do, but take care. They'll be the most balanced cocktail in the history of cocktails, that being the French 77. It is also one of the most potent. So do take care. All right, got all of the public service announcements out of the way. Well, not all of them, but the most important on a Friday, a weekend. All right, well, I woke up this morning and I got involved in a little tete-a-tete with a local who is on, well, shall we say, the opposite end of the political spectrum. And in this instance, I don't think very much that it is a circle. It is an actual bar That guy is way off to the right, even though they purport not to be. And it's over our little term limits measure that we had here in our town. Now, I was corrected. I went to a site that purported to say that we had 7,100 or so registered voters in Rogue River, but I actually think now that included the outlying rural areas that would not have been allowed to, would not have had the ballot sent to them for the term limits measure in the town, because you have to be in the town limits. So we actually have 2,400, I was corrected by a city councilman or person. Well, he's a man, so councilman. And but I still don't know then what that pens out to be in terms of how many people voted. So if there's 2,400 people or 2,400, somewhere around there, as the population, not registered voters, and there's considerably less registered voters, which makes me think that it's even less than 500 people who voted. I'm just saying. So I got to look that up. But regardless, the fact remains is that the only money thrown into this particular measure was from an outside group, an anti-tax, anti-government national group, funneled through their state organization and pumped in a little bit of money, just for, to get the word out that, voting for to get rid of term limits is Joe Biden politics. So I took exception to that and just made mention that, this is the reason that the elimination of the term limits was as a measure, because these are the facts. And there's not any number of times that the same people have said, we have to have term limits. We don't want career politicians, whatever that means. Well, we know what it means. Or also the same ones saying, why can't they keep the city council seats filled? Why do we have to keep running through mayors? I mean, they should pay them more so that they stay. Well, they're all volunteers. They don't make any money sitting on the council. So this career politician BS, I don't get. Dedicated public servants colored as some sort of evil that is descending upon us from the outside. Well, this little tete-a-tete I had with a fellow this morning who made it well known that he had to go through my profile. Now, granted, maybe I got a little bit too much on the profile, but I don't know. It's on purpose. Anyway, I have nothing to hide. I don't. And maybe I should be more careful. Well, I am. Let's put it this way. I don't go around introducing myself to people in town as Justice. All right. That's my middle name. I have a first name. And the reason I go by my middle name is because, look, when I was 19, a pretty girl said I should go by Justice because I was playing rock and roll, and I was going by RJ at the time because I hated my first name, which is, I shall tell you, it was Roy. Short for Royal, of course, but I was called Roy. And I just, for some reason, I didn't care for it. And when I was younger, Justice was a little bit too bizarre. I don't know if I can handle it in the schoolyard. So I went by RJ growing up. And the pretty girl said, you should go by Justice. It's a great name. It's a perfect stage name. Because I had expressed to her that I didn't like the idea of going by nom de plume because I wanted to honor my father, who is in his field fairly well known as a historian in his historical field. And I wanted to honor that. And she said, well, go by Justice. And I thought that was a great idea. It's a stage name. It's my name. It's a family name passed down through the generations. So now as I've gotten a little bit older and I can't run from anybody wielding a gun or worse, and I have to stand there and take it, I'm thinking, well, maybe I don't want to put a target on my back right away. Oh, hi, I'm Roy. So don't tell anybody in town. I don't want them to know. A few people know me as both. But regardless, this fellow basically went through my profile. And I said, well, that's nice. And I just retorted that I went through his profile. I looked, he didn't have much, some cars that he worked on. And, I think he was standing with his maybe older teenage son, a couple of jokes, and then the gun. The semi-automatic rifle. Black. Gun. Big ass gun. So, the guy says that he went to my profile, and obviously, the reason that I want, there's something nefarious about me being against term limits, and that's proved out by my profile, which, has my sometimes twice a week installments of poetry and critiques over on Black Co's on Daily Co's. And my music song lists, and maybe my appearances on Tim Corrimal and other shows. I'll put that on my Facebook page. And it has my rundown on my education and some of the work history and stuff. But regardless, this guy wants to know how come I'm like a locust. I just move from one spot to another spot, and I bring my liberal disease, and then I go off to find another place to be. I don't know. It's weird stuff. And he comes from California, and he moved to this small town because he wanted to be in like a small town, apparently, away from all the, I don't know, equality, justice, and liberty for all. They don't like that. The for all part. They only want it for them. So, I kind of responded. So it goes back and forth a little bit. And, since I lived in Berkeley, and San Francisco, I must be against white heterosexual men, blue collar. I'm against them. Which kind of describes me. White, blue collar, Yeah, okay, so I've had some supervisory positions, but, I'm not an industrialist, okay? Let's put it that way. I'm blue collar. Even when I was a chef owner, that's blue collar. Believe me, you have no idea. It's so hard. But apparently because I was raised that, if your skills can take you to a place where you can make a lot of money, why don't you? So am I supposed to be apologetic that I was able to find work in one of the most hottest, that's redundant, one of the most hot real estate markets in the country? And the trickle-down effect on that, is that how trickle-down works? Well, when we were working with contractors, it was pretty good. And then when we formed our own little company, it was, even better. But it was still, it was still blue collar. I mean, we made hourly wages. That's how we paid ourselves. Flip something and, make a little bit of money that way, or keep it as income and then have it spread over time. What is wrong with that? This is America. And apparently I'm like a locust. I like that. And I suppose in his cosmology, I might even be a race trader, I guess. Maybe not. Maybe I was being a little too harsh. I see that there's another notification on the Facebook, but I'm not going to open it up because it just takes away time. I can't waste any more time. We have a show to do, and I'm not going to look even at the break. We'll wait till after. And who knows, maybe I've been suspended from Facebook again because they do that to liberal locusts. So, in summing up, I just told the fellow that, I still think that, before I get to that part, I just made mention about, I was born in this state. I went to school in this state. My son was born in this state. He died in this state. We buried him in this state. I went to Portland State in this state. I used to have to bale hay and alfalfa and lug 60-pound bales of alfalfa onto a slowboat and stack those up. Yeah, I know a little bit about small-town life, pal. So as far as I'm concerned, he is Californicating my state, bringing in right-wing conspiracy theory BS that doesn't really fly in California, except in Shasta. And moved here. So how is it that I, living in my state, is changing the values of my state? Well, when you look at the history of the state, yeah, we worked hard to change those, well, anti-black slave-owning values that tried to make Oregon into a white utopia. Okay? But apparently this guy wants that, and I'm a scourge. Oh, you're just going to leave again. Been here for 10 years. Okay, so I just summed up and said that, I still don't think term limits work. I don't. Evidence proves it out. So obviously that makes me a commie. And then, of course, when I go and check, the retorts again, I'll have other people in town saying, I'm the one being so divisive. Oh, jeez. Nazis hate it when you tell them they're, being Nazis. And good Germans hate it when you remind them that good Germans are really just, dapper Nazis. Give me a break. Okay, enough of that. Let us give you what we have in store for you as we begin this fabulous Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. Oh, did you know that the preacher of the house, MAGA Mike, has, he said, okay, we're not going to have any hearings, we're going to shut down government in about 9 days. I'm going to Paris to sit down and have dinner with a bunch of MAGA Nazis over in Paris, meeting up with European Nazis. Well, they're calling it an international right-wing movement. Yeah. Like Nazism. So that's nice, isn't it? They want to subpoena in Comer's committee the aunt of a child who is being held by Hamas, a 3-year-old girl. This lady's niece. They want to subpoena her because I guess she bought a painting that Hunter Biden did. You bought one of his paintings. How much did you pay? You paid too much for that painting. That's what they're getting at. Like there's something nefarious about selling a painting. When you got Donald Trump funneling Russian mob money through his properties. That's why they're going after Hunter also. Okay? Let's be clear. All right. Enough of that. What do we have in store for you? Well, the highest court in the land cannot have the lowest ethical standard. And I think the MAGA court will argue that, yes, we can. On the rest of the menu, Jezebel has been shuttered after 16 years, just as major layoffs rocked the company. All right, that's vulture capitalism coming in and taking away another great piece of journalism. Jeez. A federal judge has temporarily blocked Idaho's abortion trafficking law, and he's blocked it from being enforced while a lawsuit challenging its constitutionality is underway. And a class action lawsuit alleges unsafe conditions at a migrant detention facility in New Mexico. After the break, we move to the chef's table where Turkey is marking its centennial, but a brain drain has cast a shadow on the occasion. And Apple might end up being on the hook after all for billions of euros in back taxes to Ireland in the latest twist in the long-running European Union dispute. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Bon appetit. Near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, off to the right of the page, is the chat room link, monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. Across the page to the left from that chat room link is the link to our Patreon page, and if you could help us out, that would be grand. So please do. Thank you. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, Mastodon, Spoutable, Blue Sky, etc., do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that. Thanks. Follow me on social media at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Codes 10 minutes before showtime, and that's where you can read the actual and full articles in their entirety. By the actual authors, and that's the way it should be, shouldn't it? So do so. You can also follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, wherever podcasts can be found, just not on Stitcher. Never going to find them. Okay, this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is Out of the Daily Beast by Lachlan Cartwright, Corbin Bullies, and Justin Barragoda. Jezebel was indefinitely suspended today, or yesterday, Thursday, as major layoffs hit GO Media, the Daily Beast has learned. The layoffs will affect 23 people. CEO Jim Spanfeller confirmed in a memo to staff on Thursday, and GEO Media editorial director Merrill Brown has also exited the company. Unfortunately, our business model and the audiences we serve across our network did not align with Jezebel's, Spanfeller wrote in the memo, and when that became clear, we undertook an expansive search for a new, perhaps better home that might ensure Jezebel a path forward. It became a personal mission of Leah Goldman, who worked tirelessly on the project, talking with over 24 potential buyers. It is a testament to Jezebel's heritage and bona fides that so many players engaged us. Still, despite every effort, we could not find Jez a new home. Well, Jezebel was founded by writer Anna Holmes in 2007 under the Gawker umbrella. Remember what happened to Gawker? Yeah, Peter Thiel. And it was later sold to Univision in 2016 following Gawker's shutdown because of Peter Thiel, before becoming part of GEO Media portfolio upon its launch in 2019. Spanfeller praised the women's culture-focused outlet for its coverage of reproductive rights following the Supreme Court's overturning of Roe v. Wade last year, and said he had not given up on Jezebel. However, the company will let go of the website's editorial staff. Now, Jezebel employees were informed of the shutdown during a meeting on Wednesday morning. A staffer impacted by the shuttering told the Daily Beast, and they immediately lost access to their Slack and Google email accounts afterwards. We are devastated, though hardly surprised at GEO Media and Jim Spanfeller's inability to run our website and their cruel decision to shutter it. Jezebel has been a pillar of fearless journalism and important cultural commentary since 2007 and made an indelible mark on the media landscape, the Writers Guild of America East, which represents GEO Media staffers, said in a statement, adding, "A well-run company would have moved away from an advertising model, but instead they are shuttering the brand entirely because of their strategic and commercial ineptitude. Jezebel was a good website." Rebecca Boone of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. A federal judge has temporarily blocked Idaho's abortion trafficking law from being enforced, while a lawsuit challenging its constitutionality is underway. The lawsuit is not about the right to an abortion. It is about much more, U.S. District Magistrate Deborah K. Grisham wrote in a ruling handed down on Wednesday, namely, long-standing and well-recognized fundamental rights of freedom of speech, expression, due process, and parental rights. These are not competing rights, nor are they at odds. Abortion is banned in Idaho at all stages of pregnancy, and the law enacted in May was designed to prevent minors from getting abortions in states where the procedure is legal if they don't have their parents' permission. Under the law, people who help a minor who isn't their own child arrange an abortion out of state can be charged with a felony, though they can then attempt to defend themselves in court later by proving that the minor had parental permission for the trip. Supporters of the law call it an abortion trafficking ban. Opponents say it is an unconstitutional prohibition on interstate travel and free speech rights. This final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A new class action lawsuit alleges that U.S. immigration authorities disregarded signs of unsanitary and unsafe conditions at a detention center in New Mexico to ensure the facility would continue to receive public funding and remain open. The lawsuit, announced on Wednesday by a coalition of migrants' rights advocates, was filed on behalf of 4 Venezuelans ranging in age from 26 to 40 who have sought asylum in the U.S. and said they were denied medical care, access to working showers, and adequate food at the Torrance County Detention Facility, all while being pressed into cleaning duties, sometimes without compensation. The detention center in the rural town of Estancia, about 200 miles from the Mexican border, is contracted by ICE to accommodate at least 505 adult male migrants at any time, though actual populations fluctuate. Advocates have repeatedly alleged in recent years that the facility has inadequate living conditions and there is limited legal counsel or access to legal counsel for asylum seekers who cycle through. They have urged ICE to end its contract with a private detention operator while calling on state lawmakers to ban local government contracts for migrant detention. Well, that brings us to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, all by myself. Warning, slight plot spoiler. Director David Fincher is known in his movie making, among other things, for having characters who are isolationists. And I think about that in his latest film, The Killer, with Seven screenwriter Andrew Kevin Walker and star Michael Fassbender. Also, I've been listening to a film podcast where the host talks about, among other things, when movie makers have elements of movie making in the movies that they make. And here I'm back to The Killer, which has a really loud meta-cinematic vibe to it. Get this, Fassbender plays an unnamed assassin who gets some blowback from a hit. Other assassins who are like him fridge his girlfriend. Google woman in a refrigerator, Gail Simone. And the whole thing becomes a straight revenge tale. Fast Killer travels the world to different locations and interacts with all these people but remains, like some artists, a disassociated observer. But the whole first beat of the movie, which is great by the way, shows him on the job and Fassbender captivating in his double duty of physical acting this taciturn man and voice acting his inner monologues, talks about his rules, anticipate, don't improvise, choosing the right tools, and the boredom as he waits to get the shot. He's got his own soundtrack, The Smiths, which of course becomes part of the film soundtrack, alongside great music from Trent Reznor. Fincher even shows us what Fast Killer sees through his scope, literally looking at the world through a lens. Fast Killer also says you have to not care about the job. Of course, with the blowback, he does care, but here's my critique. It doesn't seem to matter. He's broken one of his rules, but still does what he does as well as he does and still is who he is. So what's the point? My question also for the film in general. I mean, the movie is unconcerned about the morality of getting us to root for this killer. It's like, I know what David Fincher sees, but I don't know what he thinks or feels. And so I enjoyed watching this movie, but I don't think or feel anything about it. It's also isolating. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them? By their clothes, their age, the way they speak? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for summer break
because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a single father of 2 who works 3
part-time jobs and still can't put enough food on the table?
Or maybe a mother who cleans offices at night,
hoping to find meeting leftovers to take home to her hungry family.
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time
landing a job and getting back on his feet.
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. People you pass by every day but never knew were hungry. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 Food Banks Strong, and the Ad Council.
I'm probably okay to have one more drink before I drive home. I'm probably okay. I open the window to stay alert. Probably okay. I just popped some gum in my mouth.
Step out of the car, please.
I probably made a mistake.
Probably okay isn't okay when it comes to drinking and driving. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Bertie Bowman began his career doing janitorial jobs and sweeping the steps of the U.S. Capitol in 1944 when he was 13 years old. I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. Bowman had run away from his home in South Carolina, where his family worked as sharecroppers. He later said that when he was in the cotton fields, he'd look at airplanes and buses and wonder where they were going. Some 20-plus years later, in 1965, still in D.C., he joined the staff of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. As committee clerk, he supervised interns and messengers, including one Bill Clinton, who he bonded with over their shared love of Elvis Presley. President Clinton wrote the foreword to Mr. Bowman's 2008 memoir, Step by Step, a memoir of living the American dream. And Joe Biden wrote the blurb on the cover. When Bowman retired after working for the committee for 56 years, he was the longest-serving black staff member in Congress. One difficult part of his life story, as reported in the New York Times, some of the senators who helped him in his career were Southern segregationists. As he told NPR, "I'd be telling you a lie if I said some things those senators said didn't hurt me." Bertie Bowman, a respected and beloved person in the Capitol, died in late October at the age of 92. Rest in peace, Bertie Bowman. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. Last week, we discussed the president's broad powers and some limitations to issue a pardon. But can a U.S. president pardon him or herself? Former President Trump tweeted in 2018, "I have the absolute right to pardon myself," and he discussed that possibility after the January 6th insurrection, according to the New York Times. Professor Michael J. Conklin of Texas A&M Law School and Angelo State University examined law review articles on self-pardons and conducted his own survey of 95 law school faculty around the country. He found that while a slight majority of scholars think that answer is no, it's far from definitive. One legal principle dating back to the 1500s states, "No one is judge in his own cause." Some point to the Constitution's language giving the president authority to pardon any citizen, except in cases involving impeachment. Others cite a U.S. Justice Department memo after Watergate, which concluded the president cannot self-pardon. Yet other experts say the Constitution inherently opposes self-dealing. In U.S. v. Wilson, Justice John Marshall wrote, "A pardon is an act of grace proceeding from the power entrusted with the execution of laws. One cannot bestow grace upon oneself." One thing on which most scholars do agree, if such a pardon were to occur, it would ultimately be decided upon by the U.S. Supreme Court. We have links to these discussions at AmericanDemocracyMinute.org. I'm Brian Beal.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1887. That was the day that Louis Ling died in prison while awaiting execution for his alleged role in a bombing at a workers' rally at Haymarket Square in Chicago the year before. Louis was born in Germany. His father worked for a lumber mill. One day, while trying to clear a log jam, his father fell into an icy river. Although Louis's father lived, he could no longer carry the same workload. The company fired him despite his 20 years of service. Louis began to question a labor system that would let this happen. He became a carpenter's apprentice. Louis then traveled to Switzerland, where he became acquainted with anarchist worker groups. Finally, in 1885, Louis made his way to the United States and Chicago. There he joined the Carpenters and Joiners Union. He became an outspoken advocate for the cause of the 8-hour workday. The movement had great success in Chicago, and on May 1st, or May Day, thousands marched in the streets for the 8-hour cause. When a bomb was thrown at a workers' rally 3 days later, the backlash against the labor movement was swift and brutal. 8 men, including Louis Ling, stood trial and were convicted despite a lack of evidence tying them to the bombing. Louis Ling and 4 others were sentenced to death by hanging. But the day before the sentence was to be carried out, Louis lit a cigar in his prison cell. The cigar was packed with explosives. The explosion left Louis in agony for hours before he finally died. Some believe he committed suicide rather than die at the hands of the legal system. Others believe he was murdered. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2. Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 44 degrees Fahrenheit under cloudy conditions, expecting highs in the mid-50 with mostly cloudy skies throughout the day, winds light and variable. We did have a smattering of rain overnight, so that was rather nice. We'll have considerable cloudiness overnight with lows in the mid to upper 30s, winds light and variable. Then partly cloudy skies tomorrow, Saturday, with highs bumping 60. Winds light and variable, and then it looks like on Sunday we should have about a week's worth of rain coming in, starting on Sunday. Not all on Sunday. Oh, could be. But looks like starting on Sunday we'll have about a week's worth of rain. Or more. We'll see. Ragweed pollen is rated low here in our little town of Rogue River. The air quality index for the region is in the good range at 39 parts per million, and that daytime UV index is low at level 2. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.22 inches. Visibility is at 7 miles, and relative humidity is at 97%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is the Weather Underground. London is 48 degrees and cloudy. Paris is 51 degrees with rain. Rome is 58 degrees and partly cloudy with an active statement for a potential disruption due to rain. Bagram is 45 and clear. Kyiv is 48 and mostly cloudy. Looks like Hong Kong is 80 degrees and fair, while Tokyo is 60 and mostly cloudy. Melbourne, Victoria, Australia is 80 degrees and partly cloudy. They're in their summer. San Francisco, California is 55 degrees and partly cloudy. Chicago, Illinois is 48 and sunny. And New York is 54 degrees Fahrenheit and mostly cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Robert Badendieck of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. Hussein Bayadak says he loves Turkey and his job as a teacher, but with the rampant economic crisis and growing repression in his country, he said he and his wife have decided to try and find a better life in Germany. They are among a number of young and educated looking to leave Turkey, where rights and freedoms are being eroded and inflation is surging under increasingly authoritarian President Erdogan. After Erdogan secured a third term in office in the May elections, things are unlikely to change, he says. Even if I don't want this, even if I hate this, I will
leave this beautiful country, the 27-year-old English teacher told the AP. Bayadak and his wife, a nurse, live in the impoverished southeastern province of Cernak. Their government-appointed jobs bring the two roughly about $1,750 a month over the official poverty line of $1,564 a month. It's enough to make ends meet in their border province, but far short of what is needed in big cities like Istanbul or the capital Ankara, and nowhere near enough for a young couple to save or start a family. Turkey, a country of over 84 million people hit by a series of crises in recent years, saw the annual inflation rate of 61% last month, though some economists believe the real figure is double that number. For many, the way out is through education visas to study abroad or work permits. Turkstat, the government statistics bureau, said just about 140,000 Turkish citizens left the country in 2022, compared to about 104,000 in 2021. Those aged 25 to 29 formed the biggest group. And those numbers are a significant increase from the almost 78,000 Turks who left in 2020, when the coronavirus pandemic was at its peak.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Kelvin Chan of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Apple might end up on the hook after all for billions of euros in back taxes to Ireland in the latest twist in the long-running European Union dispute following a legal opinion yesterday, Thursday, from an advisor to the bloc's top court. A lower court's decision that the U.S. tech giant does not have to repay the $13 billion or 13 billion euros, which pens out to almost 14 billion in U.S. dollars, and that those taxes should be set aside, Advocate General Giovanni Pizzarella told the European Court of Justice, according to a press release summarizing his opinion. The case drew outrage from Apple when it was opened in 2016, with CEO Tim Cook calling it total political crap. Then, U.S. President Donald Trump slammed EU Commissioner Margaret Vestager, who spearheaded the campaign to root out special tax deals and crack down on big U.S. tax companies as the tax lady who really hates the U.S. In its 2020 ruling, the European Union's General Court disagreed with the European Commission, the bloc's executive branch, which had accused Apple of striking an illegal tax deal with Irish authorities so that it could pay extremely low rates. Pizzarella advised the European Court of Justice that it should set aside the judgment and refer the case back to the General Court for a new decision on the merits. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. And even though I like Apple, they still got to pay Ireland what they owe. All right, let's be clear. All right, that does bring us to the end of our broadcast period for the day and the week. But you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here on Monday for River City Hash Mondays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we will meet up here on Monday, right here on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.